You're here. Meet my best friend, Grace. Come say hello to my best friend.
Nice to meet you, Miss Jessie. Oh, yeah, sure. Nice to meet you too. I just kissed this woman yesterday night, and she is my dad's best friend. Oh my God!
So, picture this. I walk into my dad's penthouse after a completely stressful, soul-crushing day at school. And my dad, bless his chaotic, protective heart, had been texting my phone all morning insisting that I come home early for this super important welcome dinner. Standard family stuff, right? Wrong. I open the front door, walk into the dining room, and tell me why. Please tell me why. My dad's lifelong legendary best friend sitting at our table is the exact same untouchable, gorgeous woman I aggressively kissed at the lounge 2 nights ago. OMG, you guys, I literally almost fainted right onto the hardwood planks. Rip Ivy, the funeral is on Tuesday, but hold up. I know you are completely confused. Let's hit the brakes and rewind back to how this disaster actually started. So, 2 nights ago, I was at this crazy upscale lounge, Celine. My college friends insisted, and when I say insisted, I mean they basically dragged me by my ankles to celebrate my birthday. Big 22, I said. Fine, no problem, let's go. But these absolute fake friends decided their main mission in life that night was to get me completely, utterly drunk. I'm not even playing, you guys. After a few drinks, my head was spinning so fast, I genuinely thought I was about to see heaven's gates. But right before my brain completely short-circuited, I see her. This breathtaking, ridiculously elegant woman walks into the venue. She was wearing this stunning, tailored red jumpsuit, and gosh, I thought I saw a literal angel descend from the heavens. She looked so rich, so intimidating, and so ice-cold. Naturally, my shameless, flirtatious self just kept staring. I was locking my eyes onto her so hard that if stares could kill, that poor woman would have died 100 times over right there by the bar. Eventually, the noise and the massive headache became too much, so I excused myself to the quiet restroom hallway corridor to try and breathe. And all of a sudden, boom, panic attack. My throat completely tightens up, my chest panel layout goes stiff, and I start finding it incredibly hard to breathe. You guys, I was so scared. I genuinely thought, wow, this is it. This is how the legend of Ivy Jessie ends. But my very last dying brain cell looked out the door, saw the mystery woman walking past, and thought, listen, you cannot go 6 feet under without kissing this woman first. Before I knew it, my knees buckled, I hit the ground, and my eyes started closing. The absolute last thing I could hear before the darkness took over was a soft, frantic voice echoing, "Hello? Wake up, miss. Open your eyes." Next thing I know, splash, I feel this freezing cold water hitting my face. Oh my God, I open my eyes, and who do I see hovering directly over me? The most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my entire life. My immediate response? Gosh, am I dead? Am I in heaven? Oh God, if this is heaven, please do not return me back to earth. Mr. Johnson, I am so sorry your daughter is gone, but this heaven will be so much fun. Then she goes, Ma'am, are you okay? And I'm like, wait, why is there water dripping down my nose? Why am I flat on the floorboards? Oh, thank God, I'm not actually dead. But wait, is that OMG? It's the exact same red jumpsuit woman I was obsessively staring at earlier. She's literally cradling my head. Now, a normal person who just survived a medical emergency would be thanking God or asking for an ambulance. But me? My golden retriever brain instantly switches straight into shameless flirting mode. I look right up into her icy eyes and whisper, "Hello, beautiful damsel, thank you. And gosh, you look so good." Like, for once in my life, I completely forgot I was currently 1 foot away from a coffin, okay? Let's just leave that minor detail aside. This woman was completely my exact type. Anyway, she leans down lower to try and help me up off the floor planks, and boom, our proximity completely collapses, and our lips literally collide. Gosh, you guys, her lips were so incredibly soft. Trust me, when heaven hands you an absolute golden opportunity on a silver platter, what do? You do not lose it. You lock it down. So I completely leaned into it and kissed her right back. She pulls back instantly, totally flustered, blinking like, "Oh my God, sorry. And I'm just lying there on the tiles smirking like, "Nah, don't be sorry, I low-key loved it." But of course, right at that exact historic microsecond, Ivy, where are you? My friends come bursting into the hallway corridor at the absolute worst, most wrong time in human history. They frantically hand me my emergency inhaler, and before I can even turn my head around to get my gorgeous damsel's phone number, she was completely gone, vanished into the night, Gosh, I hate these girls so much. I mean, I love them. They saved my life, whatever. But why did they have to burst in right then? And that, my friends, is the tragic story of how. I missed a lifetime romantic opportunity. Or so I thought, because little did I know, the universe was playing a very, very wicked joke on me. Guys, I know you are absolutely enjoying the drama so far, and if you are, please do not forget to subscribe, my darlings. If you are new to the channel, a massive welcome to the family. Sit tight and get comfortable, because I promise you, after this episode, you will be 100% hooked to this channel for life. Like the tea is about to get boiling hot. Let's go. So, remember how I said I thought I missed a lifetime opportunity with my mysterious red jumpsuit damsel? Yeah, well, cut to the very next morning. It's the official first day of the university semester, and I am walking across the campus courtyard planks looking like a literal zombie because my brain is still entirely short-circuited over that restroom kiss. I walk into the grand advanced painting lecture hall, and the entire room is buzzing with this super tense, nervous energy. Everyone is leaning over their desks, whispering like, "Oh my God, did you hear? The new replaced dean is taking over our senior studio temporarily, and apparently she is an absolute ice queen. She is terrifying." Me? My shameless golden retriever self is sitting in the very back row, completely ignoring the gossip. I have my leather sketchbook open flat on my lap space, and I am aggressively, obsessively drawing a highly detailed portrait of my mystery woman's face from the lounge. I'm talking perfect line weight shading on her jawline, and her full lips. I was in total, blissed out art major zone. Then, all of a sudden, boom! The massive mahogany auditorium doors swing wide open, center axis slamming against the walls. The entire room instantly falls into a dead, suffocating silence. You could literally hear a pin drop flat on the floorboard's tiles. I slowly, casually tilt my head up axis from my sketch pad to see who just walked in, and you guys. My heart did a violent, panicking backflip straight into my throat. My breath completely hitched. I almost choked on my own saliva. Walking down the central aisle toward the podium is a woman wearing a pristine, custom-tailored dark gray powersuit jacket and white trousers, her long black hair tied up into a flawless, elegant, sleek, low ponytail. It was her, my red jumpsuit savior. The woman who cradled my head on the floor planks. The woman whose incredibly soft lips I had literally locked onto last night. I froze like an absolute ice statue. I felt the warm pink flush of pure, frantic adrenaline burning my porcelain cheeks, and I swear to God I had to squeeze the edges of my table ledger just to make sure I wasn't having another hallucination. I put my clear modern glasses on, stared down axis at the stage, and whispered under my breath, "You've got to be completely kidding me. Rip Ivy for real this time." She steps up to the podium, looking completely unshakable, elegant, and untouchable. She doesn't have a single smile on her naturally full, sculpted lips. Her face is just this hard, freezing flat line of absolute underworld authority. She locks her cold, dark eyes onto the crowd and speaks in this soft, low velvet voice that somehow cuts straight through the room like dry ice. "Good morning. I'm Professor Grace Morgan. I expect absolute discipline in my faculty. If anyone is here to waste my time, there is the door." And right at that exact microsecond, tell me why she decides to sweep her icy gaze across the lecture hall rows, stopping dead center right on my face layout. She locks her eyes onto mine for one single agonizing second. Just one. And even though her expression didn't change a single millimeter, I saw a tiny, sharp glint of freezing recognition flash in her pupils. She knew exactly who I was. She remembered the lounge, she remembered the kiss, and she was currently pretending we were total strangers to enforce strict professor-student boundaries. She calmly looked away, continuing her orientation speech like nothing had happened, leaving me sitting in the back row, sweating, smirking, and realizing that my ultimate gorgeous challenge was officially the dean of my entire school. You guys, when I say my heart was beating so loud I thought the entire back row could hear it, I'm not exaggerating. I spent the rest of that orientation lecture staring at the podium like a deer caught in high-beam headlights. But if you think Professor Grace Morgan being the literal Dean of Fine Arts was going to stop me from executing my destiny, you clearly do not know Ivy Jessie. I love a challenge, and an ice-cold, untouchable dean in a tailored power suit? That is the ultimate final boss. So, after orientation wrapped, the upperclassmen were told to line up outside the main administrative corridor to collect our new university identification cards. And guess whose private office we had to walk into to sign the master ledger? Yep, Her Majesty. I'm standing in line, and my friends are still vibrating next to me, whispering about how terrifying she looks. But my mind is running a completely different simulation. I'm thinking about the way her lips felt. I'm thinking about how she held my head. Finally, the student in front of me steps out and the administrative assistant nods at me. "Ivy Jessie? You can go in." I take a deep breath, adjust my clear modern glasses, smooth down my cream-colored knit top, and walk through that heavy oak door casing layout. The office is beautiful, huge mahogany desks, rows of art history encyclopedias, and floor-to-ceiling glass windows showing the gloomy London rain. Grace is sitting behind the desk, her head angled downward axis as her long, slender fingers type something on her tablet. She looks so elegant, so quiet, and completely out of my league. I walk straight up center axis to her desk, leaning my hands flat on the polished wood grain, bringing myself dangerously close to her personal space lane. I drop my voice into my signature shameless, flirty register and whisper, "Well, well, well. Hello again, beautiful damsel. Fancy meeting you here. You guys." I was expecting a gasp, a flush, a flustered look, anything. Tell me why this woman didn't even blink. She slowly pauses her typing, elegantly sets the tablet flat on the ledger planks, and lifts her head profile line. Her full, naturally full lips are pulled into this razor-sharp, freezing flatline. Her dark almond eyes lock straight onto mine, and the air temperature in that room instantly drops to below zero. "Miss Jessie," she says, her voice incredibly soft, low, and smoother than velvet, yet cutting through my confidence like dry ice. "Your ID card is on the ledger. Sign your name, take it, and exit the room." I smirk, completely unfazed. I lean in an inch closer, my chocolate brown eyes crinkling behind my lenses. "Oh, come on, Professor Laurent. Sorry, Professor Morgan. You're really going to pretend you don't remember me? Last night? The lounge bathroom? You splashing water on my face? Our lips, literally." "Boundaries, Miss Jessie," she snaps, slamming her palm flat against the wood grain. It wasn't a scream, it was this controlled, dangerous whisper that made my stomach do an absolute flip. What happened outside this campus was an unfortunate medical emergency. Inside these walls, I am your dean. Professors absolutely do not engage, flirt, or fraternize with students. I suggest you remember that if you care about your academic future. Now, sign the paper. Gosh, she was so mean. But you guys. She was looking right at my mouth while she said it. Her jaw clenched so hard a muscle literally ticked in her cheek architecture. She was fighting for her life to maintain that professional composure, and I could see right through it. I slowly pick up the pen, sign my name on the vertical ledger planks with a dramatic flourish, and slide the paper back to her. I grab my new ID card, wink at her through my glasses, and whisper, "Whatever you say, Miss Grace, but just so you know, I reject your boundaries equally." I turned on my heel and walked out, my heart pounding with pure, raw adrenaline. I was sad she shut me down so coldly, but I knew one thing for certain: destiny had given me a chance, and I was going to make this Ice Queen smile if it was the last thing I ever did. But oh my God, I had absolutely no idea that the universe was about to throw a truckload of gasoline onto this fire. Oh my God, you guys, if you thought the university ID card standoff was a total train wreck, mentally prepare yourselves, because this is where the universe officially decides to turn my life into a chaotic, multi-million view comedy special. So, fast forward to that exact same evening. I walk into my dad's luxury penthouse after a grueling day of trying and failing, not to stare at Dean Grace Morgan's office door. The air inside the flat smells incredible, like roasted garlic, premium rosemary, and expensive white wine. My dad, Johnson, who is literally the most chaotic, fiercely protective, and funny 32-year-old father on the planet, is running around the kitchen island ledger planks in a complete frantic panic. He had been texting my phone all morning, insisting that I come home early for this super important welcome dinner. I open the front door, walk into the dining room, and tell me why. Please tell me why. My dad's lifelong legendary best friend sitting at our table is the exact same untouchable, gorgeous woman I aggressively kissed at the lounge 2 nights ago. You guys, I literally almost fainted right onto the hardwood planks. Rip Ivy, the funeral is on Tuesday. I stand there completely frozen like an absolute ice statue, my mouth parting wide in a frantic, unhinged gasp line. And tell me why my fingers completely lost all physical grip, because the massive vanilla ice cream cone I was holding slips right out of my hand and lands. Boom! Splat, face down, flat onto the polished floorboards tiles right between our shoes. Grace freezes too. Her dark almond eyes widen into comically massive startled circles for a fraction of a microsecond before her Ice Queen shield slams right back up. Her naturally full, sculpted lips pull into a hard freezing and bloodless flat line. Right at that exact historic moment of absolute psychological devastation, Johnson comes bounding out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel beaming from ear to ear. "Grace! Oh my God, you're finally here!" Johnson shouts, completely oblivious to the radioactive tension vibrating between us. He lunges forward, throwing his arms around her in a massive, chaotic best friend hug. He pulls back, looking at her post-surgery face, and laughs. Seriously, Grace, your face completely changed after those operations abroad. If I didn't know you before, I'd swear you stole Grace's identity. But anyway, Ivy, come here, stop staring at the floor. Meet my absolute best friend in the entire world, Grace Morgan. Silence. Pure, heavy, suffocating silence. I am staring at her, my bare eyes wide, my porcelain cheeks carrying an exceptionally heavy crimson warm pink flush of frantic adrenaline, panic, and raw shock. My mind is screaming, you flirted with your dad's lifelong best friend. You kissed Auntie Grace A.T. the lounge. The realization hits me like a total freight train. This icy professor is the legendary Auntie Grace I grew up hearing stories about, explaining why I never recognized her face after her massive reconstructive plastic surgery from that accident abroad. Grace looks down axis at the melted ice cream on the floorboards, then lifts her head profile line, her soft voice dropping into that low, teasing velvet register that makes my stomach do an absolute backflip. She looks right into my wide eyes and calmly says, "Good evening, Miss Jessie. It is a pleasure to finally meet you." I swallowed hard, my jaw trembling violently as I forced my signature shameless, sarcastic smirk back onto my lips. I squeaked out, "Good evening, Professor. Welcome to our house." Johnson, completely blind to the fact that his daughter is currently having a spiritual awakening, just claps his hands. "Great. Ivy, clean up that ice cream and let's sit down for dinner." You guys, tell me why dinner became the most unbearable, high-stakes psychological war zone in human history. I am forced to sit directly across the table from her, staring at her elegant neck, pretending like I didn't spend the last 48 hours obsessing. Over her lips, Johnson is chatting away, pouring wine, totally clueless. Grace is sitting there perfectly upright, cutting her roast with absolute composure, never breaking character, completely cold. But me? My golden retriever energy was trapped under pressure, so halfway through the main course I try to subtly shift my legs under the long hanging table linen, and my foot accidentally, forcefully kicks Grace straight in the shin bone. I freeze, my bare eyes widening in shock. I expected her to gasp or scowl or call me out to my dad. But tell me why this untouchable, ice-cold Dean doesn't even move a single muscle in her upper body. She keeps chewing her food, looks dead center straight into my pupils with this terrifying, dark, and intensely amused glint in her eyes, and boom! She calmly, forcefully kicks my leg right back under the table. I choked on my water, coughing frantically. Johnson looks up, frowning. "Ivy? What was that? Are you okay?" In perfect, terrifying, synchronized panic, both Grace and I snapped together across the table, grain nothing. Oh my God, you guys. We didn't even touch, but our feet touching under that table. Neither of us reacted in front of my dad, but I swear to God, the electric chemistry was so heavy, the longing was so intense, that I knew right then and there, neither of us was going to sleep a single wink tonight. Oh my God, you guys. Right after that catastrophic dinner wrapped up, I immediately excused myself and sprinted to my bedroom. Why? Because I was officially on a targeted, tactical mission, Operation Get Grace to notice me. I stripped out of my basic daytime clothes and changed into this incredibly nice, sexy pair of short pink silk pajamas. I brushed my dark red hair waves out, looked in the mirror, and thought, "Okay, cold professor, let's see you try to ignore this." I walked back out toward the kitchen to start doing the mountain of dinner dishes. From the sink, I could hear my dad and Grace sitting in the lounge, just gabbing, gossiping, and laughing up a storm. It was actually crazy seeing her laugh with him, because at school she looks like she eats granite for breakfast. Eventually, Johnson stands up, stretches dramatically, and announces he is going to bed, leaving both of us alone in the flat. In my head, I am literally doing a massive victory dance. Yes, the ultimate opportunity. I'm standing there scrubbing a plate, and all of a sudden, I hear the soft click of heels against the tiles. Grace walks into the kitchen layout to help me finish up. And you, guys, up close, my brain completely melted. All I could think about was how stunningly beautiful she was. I was staring at her elegant hands, her perfectly manicured, bright red painted nails, and her absolutely breathtaking, curvy hourglass silhouette. Like the reconstructive plastic surgery might have changed her face, but her body. Absolute high-end poetry. I was staring so hard that Grace casually stops drying a wine glass, slowly turns her head axis toward me, and pins me with this deep focus, unblinking glare. Her naturally full lips curve into this tiny, sarcastic flat line as she softly murmurs, "Miss Jessie, if you keep staring at me like that, I might actually grow lean from it." I choked on my breath, quickly clearing my throat and looking away like, who me? Staring? Never. I scrambled to finish the rest of the dishes in total panicked silence, while my heart did Olympic flips against my ribs. Once the last counter was wiped down, Grace elegantly folds her dish towel, sets it flat on the marble ledger, and looks at me with that freezing, untouchable dean composure. She steps toward the hallway threshold and says, "Good night, Ivy." Oh my God. Hearing my actual name roll off her low velvet tongue, game over. The golden retriever energy took the wheel. Before she could even take a single stride down the dark corridor planks, I lunged forward with absolute velocity. I intercepted her space lane, caught her completely off guard, and forcefully trap-locked her flat against the kitchen doorway wall casing layout. I slammed my hands on either side of her shoulders, trapping the trillion-dollar dean completely within my personal space lane, our faces barely inches apart. I looked straight into her dark, unblinking eyes, flashed my most shameless, confident smirk, and whispered, "Miss G, good night. Wow. So you actually know my name?" Grace froze like an absolute ice statue beneath my grip. She didn't scream, she didn't push me away. But tell me why this untouchable, ice-cold woman suddenly had absolute, tiny, visible goosebumps running all across her bare neck and arms. Chills literally ran through her entire body under my touch, and I could feel her system spiking with panic. I leaned down a millimeter closer, my dark red hair brushing softly against her cheek, and whispered directly into her ear partition, "Well, you look absolutely beautiful tonight, Professor. And just so you know, I am officially on a mission to win your heart." Grace clenched her jaw so hard I thought it would crack, her breathing turning incredibly heavy and restricted. She forced her cold shield back up, staring at my mouth, and rasped out, "I will leave you now, Ivy." I smirked, slowly stepping backward axis to release the trap, giving her a slow, devastatingly flirty wink through the shadows. "Sure thing, my cold professor, but for the record, you look ridiculously good in that red nighty gown. Have a very good night." "You guys." She stood there for 3 whole seconds, completely stunned, totally flustered, and absolutely not knowing what to say. She turned on her heel and practically flew down the corridor to her bedroom, shutting the door behind her. I stood in the dark kitchen, grinning like a lunatic, realizing that behind all that freezing ice, the great Dean Grace Morgan was completely vulnerable to me. You guys? If you thought the kitchen counter trap left us both breathless, wait until you hear what happened the literal next morning. I am not even playing. The universe was working overtime to keep forcing us into tight and closed spaces together. And if you're loving this story, give me a thumbs up. Type "Go Yuri" in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe. Love you guys. So I wake up and my dad Johnson is practically bouncing off the penthouse walls. He drags me down to the subterranean parking garage because, tell me why he is the most extra human alive. He literally bought Grace a brand new luxury sports car as a welcome back gift so she could transport herself around London. And of course, because he is a chaotic mastermind, he insists that I tag along so Grace can drive me straight to the university campus grounds. I'm standing by the passenger door, and Grace walks down the concrete ramp looking like an absolute goddess. She's back in her untouchable Dean Mode-tailored dark blazer, hair packed into that flawless, sleek, low ponytail, completely unbothered. She takes the keys from my dad, slides into the driver's seat, and I hop into the passenger side, locking us both inside the tight leather cabin lane. My dad waves us off, the garage gate rolls up, and boom! We are officially alone in a moving car slicing through the rainy London streets. The silence inside that vehicle was so heavy, you guys. It was practically suffocating. I leaned back against the leather cushion, turned my head profile axis, and just stared at her side profile with a massive, shameless smirk. I was waiting for her to say something about the kitchen neck whisper, but she just kept her hands rigidly clenched around the steering wheel, her icy eyes tracking the road ahead. Finally, without even turning her head to look at me, her soft, low velvet voice cuts through the tension like dry ice. "Miss Jessie, let us lay down some non-negotiable rules for this living arrangement." I chuckled breathlessly, completely amused. "Oh, we're doing rules now, Professor. I love rules." Grace doesn't even blink. Her naturally full lips pull into a hard, freezing flatline. "At home, because of your father, we will maintain a cordial, polite distance. But the moment we step onto that university campus, you do not know me. You avoid my office. We maintain a strictly professional, detached student-professor relationship. No flirting, no comments, and absolutely no boundary crossings in my classrooms. Am I making myself entirely clear?" You guys, she was trying so hard to build this massive professional ice wall between us. But my golden retriever brain just saw it as a massive invitation to chase twice as hard. Destiny gave me a spectacular chance, and I was absolutely not letting her go. I leaned slightly closer across the central console lane, flashed her a devastatingly flirty, sarcastic smile, and murmured, Whatever you say, Miss Grace. Or should I say, yes, Dean Morgan. She clenched her jaw so hard a muscle literally ticked in her cheek architecture, her fingers tightening on the leather steering wheel as she aggressively accelerated through a yellow light. She didn't say another word the entire ride, completely ignoring me, but the radioactive chemistry bouncing off the dashboard. Neither of us could deny it. Since Auntie Grace was officially staying at our penthouse until Johnson secured her that apartment, we were completely trapped under the same roof. There was absolutely no avoiding each other. And honestly, I wasn't trying to avoid her at all. Every single hallway, corridor, bathroom exit, and kitchen counter became my personal playground. I was on a non-stop, relentless mission to chip away at her composure, but let me tell you, this woman was an obsidian fortress of cold detachment. The real chaos started over the weekend, when Johnson dramatically announced that he had a massive corporate meeting and couldn't handle the weekly household errands. He casually tossed the master credit card onto the counter and told Grace and me that we needed to tag along together to the upscale London market to restock the pantry. I looked over at Grace, who was sitting elegantly on our lounge chair, and flashed her my most shameless, victorious smirk. She didn't even lift her head profile from her book, but her jaw clenched so hard I thought her teeth might crack. 10 minutes later, we are walking through the wide aisles of the crowded grocery store, and the visual irony was just delicious. Grace was pushing the metal shopping cart with absolute rigid precision, wearing a sleek black trench coat that made her look like a high-fashion runway model who accidentally wandered into the produce section. Me? I was buzzing with pure golden retriever energy, casually strolling beside her and dropping items into the basket without even looking at the price tags. Every single time she stopped to evaluate a product, I made it my personal civic duty to violate her personal space lane. If she reached up access for a specific brand of olive oil, I would instantly step right behind her flank, my front chest panel nearly brushing flat against her back shoulder blades as I extended my arm to grab the bottle for her. "Here you go, Miss Grace," I would whisper directly near her ear partition, letting my breath softly fan the loose strands of her hair. "See? I'm incredibly useful. You should definitely keep me around forever." Grace would freeze like an absolute ice statue, her fingers tightening around the metal handle of the cart until her knuckles turned completely pale. She would forcefully snatch the bottle from my hand, drop it into the cart with a loud clatter, and step backward axis to re-establish her strict boundaries. Her full, naturally sculpted lips would pull into that signature, freezing flat line as she rasped out in her low velvet register. "Miss Jessie, there are hundreds of people in this establishment. Step back and maintain a cordial, polite distance." "Oh, come on, Professor," I chuckled breathlessly, leaning my weight casually against the side of the cart as she pushed it forward. "We're outside campus walls. You can drop the scary dean act. Besides, do you always look this ridiculously attractive while evaluating organic tomatoes, or is it just for my benefit?" "I ignore everyone equally, Ivy," she snapped softly, her dark almond eyes flashing with that terrifying, intense glint of underworld authority. "But tell me why her breathing was suddenly turning incredibly heavy and restricted." She was staring straight ahead at the bakery aisle, but her cheeks carried a very distinct burning warm pink flush that she was desperately trying to hide behind her high coat collar. She was fighting for her life to stay detached, and I was loving every single microsecond of it. The tension followed us all the way back to the penthouse kitchen layout. Johnson was still out, so we had no choice but to prep the dinner menu together. I was stood at the cutting board chopping up fresh vegetables, intentionally bumping my shoulder axis against hers every single time she reached over to rinse a pan in the sink. It was pure, unadulterated psychological warfare. At one point, she was standing perfectly upright by the stove, stirring a pot of sauce with absolute composure. I walked up right behind her to grab a spice bottle from the overhead cabinet, deliberately stretching my body over hers until my front torso was completely flush against her back panel. I stayed like that for 3 whole seconds, completely closing the distance, my arm hovering mid-air. Grace instantly went completely rigid, her breathing stopping entirely. She didn't turn around, but I could see her chest heaving under her silk blouse. "Ivy," she whispered, her voice dropping into a dangerous low velvet register that made my own stomach do a violent, panicking backflip. "If you do not move away from me this instant, I will ensure your next studio portfolio assignment is a complete nightmare." I smirked shamelessly, leaning in just a millimeter closer until my lips were barely an inch away from her neck skin partition. I murmured, "Threatening my grades, Dean Morgan. That sounds highly unprofessional, but fine, I'll move. For now." I stepped backward axis with a slow, devastatingly flirty wink, leaving her standing by the boiling stove, her long fingers trembling slightly as she held the wooden spoon. She was an absolute ice queen in public, but under our shared roof, The great Grace Morgan was slowly, agonizingly losing the battle against my relentless confidence. The domestic tension at the penthouse was one thing, but bringing that radioactive energy back onto the university campus was a completely different level of psychological extreme. At home, she was Auntie Grace, the woman who kicked my leg under the table and trembled when I got too close. But the moment those heavy mahogany studio doors slammed shut at school, she was Dean Morgan. Cold, ruthless, elegant. A total obsidian tower that nobody dared to cross. And because she was temporarily taking over our senior painting studio critiques, I had to sit in the back row 3 times a week and watch her completely tear people's portfolios to shreds. She didn't do it cruelly. She did it with this soft-spoken, terrifying surgical precision that left regular art majors sweating through their shirts. Naturally, my shameless self was completely incapable of behaving. Instead of focusing on the assigned landscape canvas model, I spent the entire afternoon staring at her profile and aggressively sketching a highly detailed, incredibly sexy portrait of her in my private leather book journal. I'm talking full dramatic shading on the sharp arch of her neck, the precise curve of her hips, and those full sculpted lips that I was actively obsessing over. I was so deep in the zone that I didn't even notice the sudden, suffocating silence that had completely blanketed the studio. The soft clicking of her heels had stopped, right behind my chair. I looked up axis, and my breath instantly hitched. Grace was standing directly over me, her tall frame casting a long, intimidating geometric shadow straight down across my desk ledger. Her face layout was a freezing flat line of pure authority. Without saying a single word, she extended her long, elegant hand with those perfect red-painted nails, reached down and cleanly snapped my sketchbook shut, lifting it right out of my lap space. "Hey!" I gasped, my bare eyes widening as I instinctively reached out to grab it back. "Professor, that's my personal." "This is an advanced painting studio, Miss Jessie, not a venue for idle doodles," Grace cut me off, her voice incredibly soft, low, and smoother than velvet, yet slicing through the room like dry ice. She held the book tightly against her chest panel layout. "I expect absolute discipline during my critique hours. If your focus is this fractured, you are welcome to find the exit." The entire class was dead silent, everyone staring at us like I was about to be executed by firing squad. "I wasn't idling, Dean Morgan," I murmured, leaning back in my chair and flashing her a subtle, devastatingly flirty smirk to test her boundaries. "I was just capturing a highly inspiring subject. You should appreciate the dedication." A tiny, sharp glint of absolute freezing panic flashed in her dark almond eyes for a fraction of a microsecond. She knew exactly what was inside that book. Her jaw clenched so hard a muscle literally ticked in her cheek architecture. "My office. After class," she snapped coldly, turning on her heel and walking back to the podium without breaking character for a single millimeter. For the next 2 hours, I sat there smirking, my system humming with pure, raw adrenaline. The second the clock struck 5 and the other students frantically packed their bags and scrambled out of the room, I stood up, smoothed down my top, and walked straight down the corridor toward the dean's private office casing layout. I didn't even knock. I just confidently pushed the heavy oak door wide open center axis and stepped inside. The office was beautiful, bathed in the dim golden amber glow of the setting London sun streaming through massive panoramic glass windows. Grace was sitting behind her massive mahogany desk ledger, her black structured jacket resting over the back of her chair. My sketchbook was sitting right in the center of the dark wood grain. I walked straight up to the desk, leaning my hands flat on the polished surface to bring my face dangerously close to her personal space lane. "So," I smirked, my chocolate brown eyes locking onto hers. "Did you call me in here to give me an F, Miss Grace, or did you just miss me that much since breakfast?" Grace slowly lifted her head profile line. Her naturally full lips were pulled into a hard, bloodless flat line, but tell me why her breathing was suddenly turning incredibly heavy and restricted. "Sit down, Ivy," she whispered, her voice dropping into a low velvet register that made my own stomach do a violent backflip. "I prefer standing," I countered playfully, leaning an inch closer. "Gives me a better view of my favorite professor." Grace slammed her palm flat against the mahogany desktop. Thud. It wasn't a scream, it was this controlled, suffocating whisper that completely pinned me in place. "Do you think this is a game? Do you have any earthly idea what kind of position you are putting me in? Look at this." She forcefully flipped my sketchbook open flat on the wood grain, revealing the portrait I had drawn. It was incredibly intimate, her eyes closed, her hair spilling loose, looking completely soft and yielding. It was the exact opposite of the Ice Queen persona she showed the world. "Professors absolutely do not engage with students, Ivy," Grace rasped, her eyes darkening with pure, long-denied intensity as she stared straight into my pupils. There is a severe academic power imbalance here. If anyone saw this, if your father found out what happened at the lounge, it would ruin everything. I am trying to protect your future, and you are acting like a spoiled brat. I looked at the drawing, then looked straight back into her wide, trembling eyes. The loud, sarcastic armor completely dropped from my face. I reached my hand forward across the central air gap, my fingers stopping just a millimeter away from touching her jawline casing. "I'm not playing a game, Grace," I said softly, my voice completely serious for the first time. "I don't care about the dean title, and I don't care about the rules. I drew you like that because that's how I see you. I see the person behind the ice, and I know you feel it too." Grace froze like an absolute ice statue beneath my words. Chills literally ran through her entire body, and I could see tiny visible goosebumps breaking out along the skin of her arms. Her chest heaved under her silk blouse as she stared at my mouth, completely paralyzed by my relentless confidence. For 3 whole seconds, the air in that office was so thick with longing, so suffocatingly heavy with pure GL chemistry, that I genuinely thought she was going to lean across that mahogany desk and kiss me right back. Instead, she violently pulled her gaze away, her cheeks carrying an exceptionally heavy, burning warm pink flush that she couldn't hide. She closed the sketchbook with a trembling hand, unlocked the bottom drawer of her desk, and slid the book completely inside, turning the key. "Leave, Miss Jessie," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly as she stared flat at the wall partition. "Our relationship is strictly professional. Maintain the distance." "Whatever you say, Dean Morgan," I murmured, letting out a breathless, beautiful chuckle as I stepped backward axis toward the door. "But you're keeping the drawing, which means you're keeping a piece of me in your locked drawer. Have a good night." I turned and walked out into the rainy London evening, my heart pounding like a bass drum. She could build her academic walls as high as she wanted. But as I walked down those stone steps, I knew the absolute truth. The cold, untouchable Grace Morgan was officially slipping, and her ice fortress was starting to crack down to the foundation. The next couple of weeks were a total exercise in emotional torture. After the standoff in her office, Grace upgraded her ice fortress to maximum capacity. At the penthouse, she barely looked at me, quickly excusing herself whenever Johnson left the room. At school, she was a total ghost, floating through the halls with her head held high, completely detached. But if she thought she could outrun fate, she clearly forgot that destiny is a very wicked, very persistent matchmaker. It all went down on a Tuesday evening. School had officially ended hours ago, and the massive brick university campus was completely dark, save for the pouring London rain grid lines washing over the glass panes. I was sitting alone in the back of the advanced art studio room working on a canvas layout when my phone suddenly buzzed flat on the timber desk planks. I unlocked the screen, and my heart did an absolute panicking backflip. It was a direct text message from her. "Miss Jessie, meet me in the advanced painting studio layout for your private mid-semester practical review. Do not be late, Dean Morgan." I let out a breathless, beautiful chuckle, a massive smirk instantly breaking across my face. I smoothed down my clothes, stood up, and waited. A minute later, the heavy oak doors swung open center axis, and Grace walked into the studio space layout. She looked breathtakingly elegant, wearing a sharp black blazer shirt and matching trousers, her long black hair tied back neatly into her signature sleek ponytail layout at the base of her neck. She set her grading clipboard flat on the mahogany table ledger, her full, naturally full lips pulled into that freezing, untouchable flat line. "Good evening, Miss Jessie," she said, her low velvet voice cutting through the quiet room like dry ice. "Let us begin the portfolio evaluation. Bring your canvas forward." "Good evening, cold professor," I murmured, leaning against my easel frame, my chocolate brown eyes glittering with shameless mischief. "You know, for someone who told me to maintain strict distance, you sure love scheduling private sessions with me after hours." Grace slowly lifted her head profile line, her dark almond eyes locking dead, center onto mine with that terrifying, intense glint of underworld authority. "This is a strictly academic evaluation, Ivy. If your maturity level cannot handle..." Suddenly, boom. A violent, catastrophic lightning strike hits the university power grid layout outside. In a fraction of a microsecond, every single light fixture in the building violently shorts out, plunging the massive, empty concrete studio room into absolute pitch-black, suffocating darkness. You guys, my entire system immediately short-circuited. I haven't told you this yet, but I have a severe, deeply rooted psychological phobia of absolute dark, enclosed spaces. The second the blackness swallowed the room, my mind instantly flashed back to the freezing orphanage corridors of my childhood. My throat completely tightened up, my chest panel layout went completely stiff, and my breathing turned dangerously ragged and restricted. I couldn't expand my lungs. "Grace?" I gasped out, my voice cracking into a panicked, trembling sob line as my knees buckled. I collapsed flat onto the rough stone floorboards planks layout, clutching at my chest in a full-blown, terrifying anxiety attack. "Grace, I can't breathe." In the pitch black, I heard a loud clatter as Grace dropped her clipboard, moving with a sudden blindsiding torque of pure adrenaline and raw physical velocity. The Ice Queen completely lost all of her rigid, cold restraint. I heard her heavy boots pounding against the planks, and within seconds, she crashed down flat onto her knees right beside my shivering frame. Her powerful arms reached through the dark, wrapping fiercely, tightly around my waistline and shoulders, pulling my torso completely flush against her chest panel layout. She held me in an absolute vice grip, anchoring me close to her beating heart axis line. Ivy, look at me, listen to my voice." Grace panicked, her voice completely unraveling into raw, suffocating worry and intense emotional terror. She began frantically, gently patting and stroking my back panel, her long fingers trembling violently. "I am right here. You are completely safe. Breathe, Ivy. Please just copy my breathing, follow my chest, in and out. I'm not going anywhere. I've got you." I frantically buried my face straight into her neck skin partition, my hands white-knuckling the fabric of her black blazer jacket. Her body was so warm, and her heart was beating so hard and fast under her skin it felt like a trapped bird. I locked onto her low velvet voice through the terror, anchoring my system to her touch until, little by little, the crushing weight in my chest layout finally started to melt away. We stayed wrapped tightly in that intense physical touch, breathing together in the silent darkness for what felt like an eternity. Finally, after 30 agonizing minutes, a loud click echoed through the building, and the overhead fluorescent light grids violently flashed back on, flooding the room with a blinding, sterile glare. I slowly opened my bare eyes, and my breath hitched for a completely different reason. Grace was still kneeling flat on the concrete tiles, holding me tightly to her chest layout. Her face layout was barely an inch away from mine center axis, her dark eyes wide, blinking, and staring down axis into my pupils with an expression of pure, unadulterated care, raw vulnerability, and melting adoration that she completely forgot to hide. Her cheeks carried an exceptionally heavy, burning warm pink flush of frantic adrenaline. My signature, shameless golden retriever confidence instantly rushed back into my veins. I looked right up into her eyes, let out a weak, breathless chuckle, and murmured, "Miss G, wow, and here I thought you absolutely hated me. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you just saved my life. You should have just let me die." Grace's pupil shrank in sudden flustered panic as she realized her Ice Queen shield had completely shattered to pieces. Before she could pull away, I boldly, playfully leaned up axis and stole a swift, tender peck kiss right against her porcelain cheekbone skin. "Thank you, Grace," I whispered with a devastatingly flirty wink. Grace flushed an even deeper, burning crimson warm pink blush, instantly ripping her arms back and standing up with an incredibly rigid scowl line pulling up her full lips. She smoothed down her blazer, her voice cracking slightly as she tried to force her cold armor back up. "You are an incredibly ungrateful, spoiled brat, Miss Jessie. Next time the electricity fails, I will gladly leave you to rot in the absolute darkness." She turned on her heel and practically sprinted out of the studio doors, leaving me sitting flat on the floorboard's tiles, laughing breathlessly, clutching my heart. But you guys, the story doesn't even end there. Later that night, back at the penthouse, I went to use the restroom. And when I walked back out into my bedroom, tell me why there was a brand new medical inhaler and a box of calming suppressants sitting right in the center of my desk ledger. Grace had quietly driven through the pouring London rain to an emergency pharmacy to get them for me. And resting right next to the medicine was a small, neat, handwritten note paper sheet. I picked it up, and in her elegant, lighter handwriting script font, it simply read, "Don't die." I burst into a massive, happy laugh, my cheeks flushing warm. I immediately grabbed my smartphone and fired a direct text message layout straight to her phone. "Cold Miss G, don't worry, I won't be dying yet. I still need a real kiss from you before I go. Good night." On the other side of the penthouse layout, inside her locked bedroom, Grace Morgan read the screen, her lips curving into a massive, genuine, and breathtaking small smile as she hid her face against her plush white pillows, completely captured by my relentless confidence. You guys, after the blackout incident in the art studio, the air inside our penthouse became completely explosive. Reading my flirty texts and smiling behind closed doors, but the second she stepped into the common areas, she was right back to acting like a majestic, unshakable block of ice. She thought she could keep her professional distance while living under the exact same roof as me, but she completely underestimated my cooking skills and a massive twist of terrifying fate. It all went down on a rainy Friday evening. Johnson was stuck at a high-end corporate logistics meeting in the city, so it was just Grace and me left to handle dinner. Wanting to impress my cold professor, I decided to go all out. I put on a cute apron, turned up the music, and aggressively prepped this gorgeous high-end baked seafood pasta ledger layout. I'm talking fresh salmon, rich garlic cream sauce, and a mountain of Parmesan cheese. I was completely in my zone, thinking, yes, she is absolutely going to fall in love with me tonight. When Grace walked into the kitchen, she looked exhausted. Her black blazer jacket was gone, her white silk blouse was slightly unbuttoned at the collarbone axis, and her long black hair was tumbling down past her shoulders in loose, messy waves. She looked so soft, so vulnerable, and so ridiculously attractive that I almost chopped my finger off. "Dinner is served, Dean Morgan," I smirked shamelessly, scooping a massive portion flat onto her plate. "Eat up. I made it with an extra dose of affection just for you." Grace let out a soft, low velvet sigh, sitting down perfectly upright at the dining table ledger planks. "Your mouth never rests, does it, Miss Jessie? Thank you for the meal." She picked up her fork, elegantly took a massive bite of the fish pasta, and chewed. I sat across from her, resting my chin in my hands, waiting for her to praise my culinary genius. But you guys, within literally 10 seconds, everything went completely, terrifyingly wrong. Grace's fork slipped out of her slender fingers, clattering loudly against the porcelain grain. I watched in absolute horror as her face layout instantly turned ghost white. Her full, naturally full lips violently parted in a pained, breathless gasp line, and her hands flew midair straight to her throat skin partition. She started wheezing, her chest panel layout going completely rigid as her eyes widened into comically massive, terrified circles of raw panic. "Grace?" I screamed, leaping out of my chair so fast it literally flew backward axis and crashed onto the floorboards. "Grace, what's wrong? What's happening?" "Fish," she choked out, her voice cracking into a breathless whimper as a cold sweat streaked her forehead skin partition. "Lethal. Allergy. Oh my God, you guys." I felt a violent, suffocating panic surge straight through my veins. I had absolutely no idea she was violently, lethally allergic to seafood. Johnson had never mentioned it, and Grace had never said a word. She was suffocating right in front of me, her system completely shutting down as she began to tilt sideways in her seat. "Where is your EpiPen? Your injection?" I panicked, frantically ripping open her designer leather purse and tearing through her pockets. Empty. Nothing. She didn't have it on her. "Pharmacy." Grace wheezed out, her eyelids fluttering as she began to lose consciousness, her body slumping limply across the table grain. I didn't think for a single microsecond. Driven by pure, raw adrenaline and frantic protective fury, I charged out of that penthouse door layout like a bat out of hell. I didn't even grab a coat or an umbrella. I bolted down the grand staircase planks and burst straight out onto the London streets into a literal torrential downpour rainstorm. The rain grid's lines were streaming diagonally across my face, blinding me, and the freezing wind was ripping through my thin top, but I didn't care. I ran at full speed, my boots splashing violently through massive puddles as I raced 3 blocks down the pavement lane to the local emergency pharmacy clinic. I burst through their glass double doors, soaked to the bone, panting and screaming at the pharmacist. "I need an emergency allergy epinephrine injection shot right now. It's a lethal anaphylactic crisis. Hurry." The second the pharmacist handed me the pre-filled medical syringe container, I spun around and sprinted all the way back to the penthouse, my heart pounding like a violent bass drum. I lunged into the apartment, ran straight to the dining room, and found Grace collapsed flat on her side on the floor planks, barely breathing. I dropped to my knees beside her shivering frame, my hands trembling violently as I positioned the injection shot dead, center against her thigh axis line. I closed my bare eyes and slammed the mechanism down. Boom. I held it there for 10 agonizing seconds, my tears mixing with the rainwater dripping down my face. "Grace, please, open your eyes. Breathe. Please don't leave me." Within moments, the medication flooded her system. Grace let out a massive, violent gasp line, her chest panel layout aggressively expanding as her airways finally ripped wide open. She coughed breathlessly, her dark almond eyes fluttering open, wide, clear, and staring up axis directly into my panicked face. Later that night, the storm was still violently pounding against the floor-to-ceiling panoramic glass windows. Grace was resting in her bed, her face finally regaining a soft, natural warm pink flush. I had changed into dry pink pajamas, and honestly, the fear had completely stripped away all of my loud, sarcastic defense armor. I quietly slid onto the mattress right next to her, pulling her tall, fragile frame close and cuddled flat against her side chest panel layout. Grace didn't push me away. She let her head loll softly against my shoulder, her breathing slow and steady. Once the chaos of the epinephrine shot settled, I couldn't even think about sleeping in my own bed. The absolute terror of almost losing her stripped away every single bit of my usual shameless loud defense armor. I stayed right by her side in her bedroom all night long, pulling a chair right next to the mattress. I swear to God, I didn't sleep a single wink. Every 2 minutes, I was leaning forward center axis, holding my hand just a millimeter above her mouth to anxiously check if she had stopped breathing. Later in the night, Johnson finally burst through the penthouse door, completely out of breath after rushing back from his logistics meeting. He ran straight into the guest suite, his face unraveled into pure raw panic. The second he saw Grace sitting upright, her lungs fully expanded, he lunged forward and threw his powerful arms around his best friend in a massive, deeply emotional hug. He was holding her so tightly, whispering how terrified he was, while Grace just softly rested her chin against his shoulder, her dark eyes wide and blinking with a quiet gratitude. After a few minutes of soothing the family panic, Johnson wiped his eyes, looked over at me, and said I should head to the kitchen to grab some water while he went down to the dining room to handle the messy dinner aftermath. So, Johnson leaves the room, and I am slowly turning around to walk out of the doorway threshold casing. But before my foot can even cross the lane, I feel this sudden, firm, and gentle grip wrap around my wrist. I look down axis, and my heart does a violent backflip. Grace was actively holding my hand halfway out the door. I turned back center axis, my chocolate brown eyes looking straight into her pale face. She looked up at me, her naturally full lips trembling slightly as she whispered in a low velvet register, "Thank you, Ivy." My signature, shameless golden retriever confidence instantly rushed back into my veins. I leaned over the bed ledger, flashed her a devastatingly flirty smirk, and murmured, "Sure thing, Professor. I promise I won't be giving you seafood ever again, so you won't be dying on my watch. Besides, your lips are officially mine now anyway." "You guys," Grace instantly froze like an absolute ice statue beneath my words. "I'm not even playing. You could literally see the chills and tiny goosebumps surge straight through her arms and under thighs under the sheer audacity of my comment. She was so thoroughly flustered and shocked that she quickly let go of my hand, pulling the comforter up to her chin. I just let out a breathless, beautiful chuckle, gave her a flirty wink through the shadows, and finally walked out to my room, leaving her completely captured by my relentless confidence. So, cut to the very next morning. The second my eyes flew open, I didn't even care about brushing my hair. I bolted straight out of my room and ran directly to Grace's door to check if she was fully recovered. I walked into the kitchen, put on a cute apron, and aggressively prepped this gorgeous, high-end homemade chicken soup to make absolutely sure she was fine. I brought the bowl into her room, expecting a soft smile, a tender look, anything. Tell me why this woman was right back to acting like a majestic, unshakable block of ice. She elegantly took the tray from my hands, her face lay out a freezing flat line of pure authority, and softly murmured, "Thank you, Miss Jessie. You may return to your studies now." Like, hello? What happened to holding my hand last night? I just scowled and left her to eat in total icy silence. Fast forward to later that evening. The penthouse was completely quiet, and all of a sudden, I hear this soft, heavy coughing coming from the lounge. My golden retriever instincts kicked in, and I ran over center axis to where Grace was sitting on the sofa. I stepped deep into her personal space lane, leaning my upper body aggressively close to her face layout, staring straight into her pupils. "Grace," I said, my voice dropping all the sarcasm, turning completely serious. "Why are you always acting so incredibly cold to me? Why do you keep building these massive walls the second we are alone?" Grace slowly lifted her head profile line, her dark almond eyes widening into comically massive circles of raw, flustered panic under my proximity. Her jaw clenched hard as she rasped out, "Grace, you just called me by my first name. Not Miss Grace, not Dean Morgan." "Yeah, I did," I countered boldly, leaning an inch closer. "Because we are under my roof, and I want to know what you are running from." Grace violently turned her head profile away from me, staring flat at the dark window pane. "Leave me alone, Ivy. I want to be left entirely by myself." I felt a sharp, painful sting of rejection hit my chest panel layout. I sighed breathlessly, straightening my posture to step backward axis. "Fine. If you want your space, I will give it to you. Just please know that no matter how mean you are, I am always here for you. I turned on my heel, about to walk down the dark hallway corridor, but just as my hand touched the door casing layout, her soft, low velvet voice cut through the shadows, completely stopping me in my tracks. She whispered, "I'm a ghost, Ivy." You guys, my internal monologue instantly went into a full-blown, unhinged tailspin. I froze dead center in the lane, my eyes bulging out of my head. I was like, wait, hold up. What did this woman just say? A ghost? Like, a literal ghost? Gosh, like a spooky floating phantom? Johnson, Dad, you did not tell me we had a literal house ghost haunting our luxury penthouse. Duh, like, what is she saying? Even if she was a real spirit, stupid me would still want her anyway. I violently shook my head, snapping back from my unhinged thoughts, and turned around to look at her. Grace, what do you mean, a ghost? Grace looked up axis at me, her eyes wet, trembling, and shimmering with an absolute abyss of pure, long-buried heartbreak. The cold armor completely fractured to pieces, and for the first time since she arrived in London, the entire truth became crystal clear. Years ago, I was in a horrific car accident abroad, she whispered, her low velvet voice cracking with deep, profound trauma that left me completely paralyzed. I survived, but my entire original face layout was completely destroyed. I had to undergo months of agonizing reconstructive plastic surgery just to look normal again. But right before the operations, the partner I loved looked at my broken, injured face, called me ugly, and completely abandoned me when I needed them most. I hid overseas in France because I couldn't bear the thought of anyone looking at me. I feel like a stranger in my own skin. Ivy? When your father jokes that I stole Grace's identity, it kills me because I feel like the real Grace died in that car, and I am just a ghost masquerading in a stranger's face. I act cold because if people look too close, they will realize how fractured I actually am. Oh my God, you guys. My heart completely shattered into a million microscopic pieces. The absolute agony in her voice was so raw, so intensely tragic, that tears instantly welled up in my own bare eyes. I didn't care about the academic rules, I didn't care about the age gap, and I didn't care about her walls. I stepped straight back into her personal space lane, my mind completely consumed by a desperate need to protect this beautiful, broken woman. I knew right then and there, I was never, ever letting her go. So right after she dropped that heavy, tragic trauma bomb on me about her accident and the ex who left her for being ugly, the silence in that penthouse lounge was completely suffocating. She was sitting there trembling, looking like a shattered porcelain doll hiding inside an ice queen's body, and my golden retriever brain just completely short-circuited. I didn't see the terrifying university dean anymore. I just saw the woman who saved my life at the lounge, the woman who needed to know she was worthy of being loved. I didn't say a single word. I just closed the distance between us on that sofa, stepped deep into her personal space lane, and slid my hands up axis to delicately, gently cradle her warm caramel skin cheekbones. I forced her to look straight into my bare eyes. And you guys? The absolute long-denied romantic geochemistry in the air was so thick it felt like static electricity. I don't care about who you were before, and I don't care about the surgery, I whispered, my voice completely thick with pure devotion. You are the most beautiful artist and the most breathtaking woman I have ever met in my entire life. I don't see a mask, Grace. I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. Grace's breath hitched violently center axis. Her dark almond eyes went comically massive, wide, completely wet, and shimmering with an absolute abyss of pure, overwhelming relief and raw vulnerability. She looked down at my mouth, her long, slender fingers rising mid-action to tightly grip my wrists. And in that extreme high-density moment of emotional breakthrough, the distance completely vanished into thin air. We leaned into each other simultaneously, and our lips locked into our absolute first real, intense, and deeply passionate mouth-to-mouth kiss. Gosh, you guys, it was so heavy, so breathless, and filled with such an agonizing, beautiful longing that it felt like my entire universe was collapsing flat against the plush sofa cushions. She was kissing me back with this desperate, starving intensity, her hands sliding up into the loose waves of my dark red hair, completely shattering her cold restraint to pieces. It was a total Netflix banger moment, okay? I was flying through the clouds thinking, yes, the ice fortress has officially fallen. But oh my God, wrap yourselves in a blanket because the next morning was a literal Arctic blizzard. I woke up the next day practically glowing with pure romantic adrenaline, a massive smile plastered on my face. I threw on my clothes and ran down the hallway corridor to her room to see my beautiful professor. But the second I stepped into the guest suite threshold casing, the air instantly turned below zero. Grace was already fully dressed in a sharp, custom-tailored solid black executive suit jacket with a high-button collar, her hair packed tightly into her signature flawless, sleek, low ponytail layout at the base of her neck. She was packing her folders into her leather briefcase ledger planks. Her face lay out a dead, freezing flat line of pure authority. "Grace!" I smiled, stepping close on her axis. "Good morning, Miss Jessie." She cut me off instantly, her soft voice dropping into that low register that felt like a slap flat across my face partition. She didn't even look up Axis from her bag. "Regarding the events of last night, it was a complete, highly unprofessional mistake. It was a lapse in judgment brought on by emotional distress. It will never happen again, and we will keep it that way. Now, if you'll excuse me, I am leaving for the campus." You guys, my jaw literally dropped. I froze like an absolute ice statue, my bare eyes widening in total starstruck heartbreak. I couldn't even believe it. Like, Grace actually kissed me back. The kiss was just playing over and over in my head, and then she has the nerve to look me dead in the eye and say it's a mistake. Like, seriously. I couldn't even understand what was happening. How do you go from holding me like I'm your entire world to treating me like an absolute stranger? A mistake? And that is where we leave you tonight. I know. We will be back very soon with the next episode, and I promise you, it only gets deeper from here. If this episode got you, if you felt something, drop your favorite moment in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you are watching this for the very first time, welcome. Welcome to the family. Subscribe, turn on your notifications so you never miss what happens next, because nothing is ever what it seems, and nobody falls the way these two will fall. Before you go, I have something special to share. Channel memberships are now open. If you're enjoying these stories and want even more content, consider joining the channel. Members get early access to new videos, exclusive perks, custom stickers and badges, and special members-only content you won't find anywhere else. Your support helps me create more stories and bring even bigger projects to life. So if you'd like to support the channel and unlock some awesome extras, click the join button and become part of our members family today. Thank you so much for watching. It genuinely means everything. Until next time, stay brave, stay curious, and remember, the most powerful love in any world is the kind that chooses you back. See you in episode 2.